This video was sponsored by War Thunder. More from them in a bit. I love speculative architecture. Futuristic buildings that probably will never be built, but are just cool to look at. A space elevator. The Chicago L train, but in space. How big could these skyscrapers get? Maybe it's 10,000 feet or 30,000 feet. Sometimes they're realistic, most of the time they're not. But honestly, they're still pretty interesting. At least more interesting than a lot of real skyscrapers, right? Like, yeah, the Burj Khalifa is really, really tall. But also, the highest usable space in it is only like 7 feet taller than Shanghai Tower. Like, look at this. This is the second tallest building in the world. But it's only that because of that spire. And I think that's cheating. So what if you had a skyscraper of this scale that used a lot of space? That's the idea of Tokyo's Sky City 1000. Ever since I was younger, this thing fascinated me. This mega structure that would just be at the center of Tokyo, but contain pretty much an entire city within it. Was it ever gonna get built? No. But what's interesting is how much planning actually did go into this concept. Sure, it didn't happen and probably never would have happened, but luckily it was featured in an episode of Extreme Engineering on the Discovery Channel, which contains this thing rendered in beautiful early 2000s CGI. And today, I just want to talk about it. War Thunder is the most all-around comprehensive vehicle combat game ever developed, and it's available to play right now for free on PC, consoles, and mobile devices. You can control over 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships from 10 major nations, spanning decades of technological development, from the armored cars and biplanes of the 1920s to battle tanks and fighter jets of the modern day. Each vehicle is modeled down to its individual components with intricate detail. Engines, weapon systems, fuel tanks, all susceptible to damage like you'd expect from their real-world counterparts. The game is designed with immersion in mind and features extremely detailed vehicles to make you feel like you're really at the center of the action. So go play War Thunder now for free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, or mobile devices. Use my links in the pinned comment or video description to sign up. New players and those who haven't played in 6 months will also receive a massive bonus pack on PC or consoles that includes multiple premium vehicles, the exclusive vehicle decorator, Eagle of Valor, 1,000 Silver Lions, and 7 days of premium accounts. It's only available for a limited time, so don't miss it.
In Tokyo, plans already exist that will change the way people live 50, 100, even 500 years from now.
You know, that's a pretty ambitious timescale. 50, 100, 500 years in the future. We can't even predict what's gonna happen to a mini mall in like a decade. So half a millennium in the future just seems a little, I mean, I guess anything could happen, right? Tokyo could be under the ocean. They could rebuild it on the moon. I at least like how they're not starting this off by saying, hey, we're gonna introduce this crazy idea that could be built in like 20 years. It's not going to.
Sky City, 2/3 of a mile high.
2/3 of a mile high. That's 3,520 feet. This is a little bit misleading. The actual structure was planned to be 1,000 meters tall, which is 3,281 feet, which is still really tall, but not insane. For example, it would actually be shorter than the tallest building currently under construction, the Jeddah Tower, at 1,008 meters. But these are two very, very different buildings. So just look at the girth on this thing. Look at the skyline too. Can you really imagine this in the skyline of your city? Everything else becomes completely pointless. I don't know if they exactly got the scale right on this. This is Tokyo Tower. Tokyo Tower is 1,093 feet tall, or 333 meters. So it should be 1/3 of this. It's a little exaggerated, okay?
With homes and jobs for hundreds of thousands of pioneers. The world's first homesteaders in the sky.
Ah, yes. The world's first homesteaders in the sky. People used to try to venture across the oceans or get through the wild frontier. Nah, now we're just talking about living on the 50th floor of this, whatever this is supposed to be. That's the real pioneers here.
But can it be built?
No.
And would it be safe?
No. You're showing me this thing on fire, so I'm gonna assume no.
Would Sky City be the metropolis of the future? Or a death trap in the sky? Tokyo, Japan. Like any great city today, it's jam-packed with concrete, glass, and steel. A painful sacrifice for a people who consider trees sacred. But if visionary architects have their way, all that will be replaced by this.
If visionary architects have their way, all the trees will be replaced by this absolute abomination in the sky. Who needs trees when you can have Mega City 1?
A building that creates new green space indoors.
Ah, yeah. So you see, it doesn't matter if you take out all the trees. You can just build more trees in your new building. See all the trees that are on the skyscraper? That means it's eco-friendly.
A radically new urban landscape with a total interior space as large as 23 Disneylands.
Is that a metric of measurement? 23 Disneylands? How many Disneylands are in a Disney World? So we're gonna assume they're talking about Disneyland before California Adventure, which appears to be about 100 acres. Disney World is like almost 30,000 acres. So this Sky City is really about 1/10 of a Disney World, if you want to go that way. Or Disney World is 10 Sky Cities.
Sky City resembles a stack of 14 hollow bowls called space plateaus. In each, a lush green open-air park space.
Like, I get what they're doing here, where, you know, it's like, it's kind of cool that you have this interior space inside the city that resembles almost something natural. Emphasis on the almost. But whenever you look up, it's still gonna be just a giant slab of concrete. I don't know if that's a deal breaker for people in the cities, because, like, I don't know, isn't it just gonna be smog otherwise? But...
And a revolutionary new transportation system to speed residents and visitors among the 10-story high-rises that ring each plateau.
This really is just big Disneyland. I don't know if this is because of the restrictions of the CGI at the time, but doesn't this whole thing just look a little bit, I don't know, horrifying? Like, these look like prison cell blocks. I like how we're in the far distant future, hundreds of years in the future, and some guy's just, he's still reading his newspaper.
Inside, condos, hotels, shops, restaurants, offices, entertainment and sports complexes, making it possible to live from cradle to grave without ever setting foot on Mother Earth.
Ah, yes, I've lived my entire life inside of Sky City. I've never even touched the ground.
Compared to other tall structures, like the 1,000-foot Eiffel Tower, Sky City seems too big to believe.
Yeah, because the scale is completely off. That's why it's too big to believe. They say it's only like around 3,000 or so feet tall. What you're presenting here is like a mountain. That is not 3 times larger than the Eiffel Tower. That's like 10 times. Why lie? Is it just to impress us with this fake building that will never exist?
But for the idealized city of the future, size definitely matters.
Idealized city of the future. See, everybody, this is the best case of how humanity progresses. Sky City 1000.
Most Tokyo residents spend 2 to 4 hours every day traveling to and from work.
I love the options here. If you live in Tokyo, you can either spend a majority of your life just traveling to work, or you have to live and work inside of the giant mega building, the all-consuming force where you can't see the sky.
Which is why Sky City envisions a new urban landscape. A city of the future carved out of thin air.
See, we just gotta take the city and just push it into one big building.
But where can you put a building this large in one of the world's most crowded cities?
You can't. You can't do it. You don't need to do it. Don't put it in Tokyo. Put it actually anywhere else. In the desert, on an island, in the ocean, but not smack dab in the middle of the city.
With a footprint of 30 acres, Sky City would effectively condemn 120 Tokyo city blocks, possibly erasing centuries of Japanese heritage.
Imagine destroying a 1,000-year-old temple just so you can have a 23 Disneylands stacked on top of each other.
But here at the Mori Building Company in Tokyo, urban planners are determined to think big and looking to win over Tokyo's citizens with a PR campaign as radical as their building design.
I feel like you're going to need a pretty good PR campaign to win people over on this one.
Offering virtual helicopter rides over a 1/1000th scale model of downtown Tokyo. Strapped into special vibrating seats, visitors watch a live video feed.
I think it's cute, but it doesn't inspire me that you're going to be able to build Sky City 1000.
There's very little open space in Tokyo. The roads and streets are very narrow. Community parks aren't very big. These problems are a serious burden on the city.
Okay, I want to point out, I don't have any solutions here to these problems. You know, I'm not a city planner, but I just feel like there's a better way to do this than plopping another city inside of your city.
A total urban environment for 135,000.
Okay, so this part of the documentary is a little bit misleading. I took this as 135,000 citizens, which still doesn't seem great considering, you know, the population of Tokyo and the fact that this kind of redefines the entire space of the city. But it's actually 100,000 workers and only 35,000 residents. So this whole thing right here only adds living space for 35,000 people. Compared to, you know, the rest of Tokyo. That's nothing. 35,000 people might sound like a lot, but I can't even give you a great example of how many people that is, because any city I would name with that population, you've probably never heard of. I mean, I guess it's like 25% of Dayton. 25% of Dayton could live inside this building.
In some parts of the world, builders quake-proof their skyscrapers by digging through loose soil, setting their foundation on solid bedrock below. But in Tokyo, that's not an option, because bedrock is simply out of reach. Builders would have to excavate through many layers of soil before hitting rock bottom, more than 1.5 miles down, creating an 800-story basement.
I mean, is that out of the question for a project as ambitious as Sky City? Like, the whole purpose of this project is solving Tokyo's congestion issues, right? Building a factory inside of the city, just a perpetual factory to build a single structure, doesn't seem like it's gonna solve all that much.
Imagine Sky City at 2/3 of a mile high in the middle of Tokyo. What if disaster struck, knocking workers, tools, and materials from the unfinished building?
I mean, like, that's a concern, honestly, but like, why just bring it up in the middle of the episode? Like, hey, you know, when building this thing, people could fall off it. I mean, yeah, that could happen with any building. Are they just trying to, like, introduce some drama to our Discovery Channel documentary about a building that will never be constructed?
It's 14 open space plateaus, with each platform larger than a football stadium, make the immense building almost entirely hollow.
Okay, so this is one of the big problems I have with Sky City, is that you are taking up all this land real estate, but the actual structure itself isn't that big. It's mostly confined to these pretty thin hallways on the outsides of the building, with this inner space just functioning as, you know, a nice park area. I mean, realistically, it's not like all 12 space layers or whatever they call them is going to be filled with parks. Half of them will probably be mini malls. Maybe one of them will be a Walmart.
Some dangers are almost too terrifying to contemplate. Make the building round, allowing ferocious high-altitude winds to slip right past it. But wind can cause still one more problem, as these test subjects riding a skyscraper simulator can attest.
I like the skyscraper simulator. You got the guy at the computer, you got the little table right here with the plants that are clearly dead, and then two people having a casual conversation.
To find a way to move people efficiently, designers look to the past, to the work of legendary architect Frank Lloyd Wright half a century ago. In 1956, he proposed building Mile High City. At 528 floors, the structure would have been much taller even than Sky City, and Wright proposed radical new technologies to help people get around, like multi-decker atomic-powered elevators and landing pads for 150 personal helicopters.
You know what? I'm on board with this. Who needs cars when you can have a personal helicopter?
The building was before its time.
You can say that again.
But Wright believed that one day, buildings like this would be commonplace. That day may have finally arrived.
No, it hasn't. I mean, I know I'm not up to date on all the newest, hippest tech all the time, but I'm pretty sure this building doesn't exist. I like how most of this whole show is just them presenting different conflicts that will definitely happen with Sky City, and then just kind of hand-waving it away at the end. The biggest questions I have is not how do you firefight in this building, or how do you protect it from earthquakes or wind, but like, how does basic plumbing work? How would people actually get around this thing? Because it just doesn't seem feasible. How many elevators would you need for this thing to function? Like, what's the traffic congestion surrounding Sky City?
Sky City. A tonic for an ailing metropolis.
I like how there's still blimps in the future, you know? Feel like you should set those fireworks off a little bit further away from Sky City.
Cities as we know them could disappear, to be replaced by this, the Hyper City.
There you go, guys. It's the Hyper City. It looks cool. Don't get me wrong. I love the idea that this is actually just out in the middle of nowhere. You're not going to have all those problems with traffic congestion and all that. But let's think about this for just a moment. Why? Why do we have this entire city condensed into just this tiny living space? Why don't you, I don't know, extend out into the distance where there is clearly a lot of room to do other things? I mean, there's some good land real estate right over there. Don't need to just cram it all into 3 sky cities.
Child of engineers who dare to dream the impossible.
And ultimately, it was impossible. Okay, so Sky City, also known as Sky City 1000, is actually a much older concept than this documentary seems to imply. It was actually created in the late 80s when Tokyo was booming, and land prices, real estate, that was all skyrocketing. At this point, the idea was that it would be genuinely cheaper to build something like this in the future if land prices would continue to rise. Now, this was a bubble, but since this documentary TV show, whatever you want to call it, aired, there hasn't really been a whole lot of interest in Sky City. And at some point, I gotta wonder whether even if the technology existed and every problem was solved, would there really be any demand for this thing? Because, I mean, it's not like you're living in a city. You're living in a single building. It's gonna be extremely hard to go from the building to the city, given all the traffic congestion outside. And if the building was truly functional as a city, there would be no incentive to leave. So, I mean, who would willingly choose to live here? Seems like it's gonna be pretty expensive, right? Maybe there's a market for this. Maybe this is exactly what Japan is clamoring for, and my American sensibilities just don't get it. But I feel like there are better solutions to the problem of population growth, traffic congestion, and all that beyond just building this. I'm not gonna complain though, because obviously it looks really cool. And that's all that really matters. Again, huge thanks to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to play it for free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, or mobile now by using my links in the pinned comment or video description. New and returning players that haven't played in 6 months will also receive a massive bonus pack across PC and consoles, including multiple premium vehicles and other goodies. It's only available for a limited time, so make sure not to miss it.